Hi, this is Steve Lentini, and I'm your host for the podcast Different Thinking for Different Times, Season 3, Episode 2. So, welcome to the new year, and you can see all kinds of examples of small minded thinking. And the gift in all of this is for us to let go of the stories that we tell ourselves. So, that's what I'm focusing on this week in breaking through all small minded thinking. Because what we forget is that we live in a universe, we live in a miracle, and everything is in divine order. I mean, after all, we're floating around on a garden rock at the exact right spot around an exposed nuclear fusion plant that we call the sun. And yet in our own lives, we want everything to be different. We rail against people that think differently than we do. What side you're on, I don't care, because I just enjoy watching both sides be wrong, right? That people think that they're the right side are both wrong, because all of life is an invitation to negotiation. All relationships require understanding of each other. And so the thing to do is always look at what is small-minded. Picture an acorn. If you viewed any of my videos on my website or on my LinkedIn page, you'll know that I feature the acorn, right? And I picture the acorn, and the acorn itself thinks it's complete. That's why we call it a nut. So anywhere you think you're complete and all your stands are firm and you make everyone else wrong around you, it's not infinite. And it's not where we go to from here. Instead of death, we should call it what's next. I have experienced the other side, and nothing from here was there. The infinite force that created us is not small-minded. So when you're telling yourself a story about others, whether it's political views or racial views or sexual preference views, or one sex is wrong versus the other, or there's a battle, all of that is nonsense. Everything is one where we return to and where we come from. Where we come from and return to is infinite. And our job here is to overcome that small-minded thinker that I sometimes call the little fucker on our shoulder, or the acorn brain. Life is not a finite game. We think it is because we worry about achieving things here and titles and buying things, when our focus spent helping others would improve our lives. Helping others, having dialogue with others, and not from one side or the other being wrong, no matter what it is. Wherever you have limited views, you're not thinking like what made this universe, what made the miracle we live in. We take it for granted, right? Can you imagine if all of life, if an asteroid hit the Earth in the next minute and you left angry and frustrated and you weren't spending any time helping others because, after all, you were taking care of yourself, worrying about dying, or you were angry that people think differently than you, or perhaps it's your mate, your spouse, your boss, your children. I don't know, but you know that what I'm saying about the small-minded thinker exists in everyone. I have it back in my body. I can tell you that I laugh every day at the times where I catch myself reacting and listening where I want to listen to the acorn brain. And every time I overcome it, it's amazing, by surrendering to the moment and just asking myself, wait, is this true? Is this true about me or is this true about others? No, everything's in order. It's as it should be. The only way for society to change and in this type of physical existence, we have to see all sides, and sometimes the pendulum swings far to one direction or the other, and eventually it comes back in the middle. Humans need some chaos. Without chaos, there would be no creation. After all, even the Big Bang was a chaotic moment. So remember what made this, where we come from and where we go back to, everything is one. There were no sexes, no political parties, no countries, no religions. All of that is human BS that, if you look over history, that we all find ways to make each other wrong and even fight over it or war over it. And we need that too to look at. You can look at the people that have lost their cause over the years, for example, right? In the world wars, you can see which side was wrong and what it took for humanity to overcome the thinking that was very small minded and limited. And any side today can have that, right? Because if you want to restrict others from having different thoughts than you're no different than what happened in World War II, for example, or what happened in communist countries where neighbors were telling on neighbors because they thought differently than the party. And you can see it's happening today in China, for example. Is that where you want to live, in something small minded and limited? Or do you want to live in something limitless? And you can do that in your mind. You're, after all, the only one you can control. Start to look at where you're very small minded and tight and angry and frustrated and bitter, and expand into that infinite. Think about or read about where we come from. And while you're here, your religion is fine. There is no religion that's wrong, except for those people that make other religions wrong, which again is small minded thinking. We have to remember we live in a miracle, and what we come from and what we return to, we can source that here by being in the moment, being in the now, being grateful for all your blessings and even your struggles. If you feel like right now that you're being squeezed through the eye of a needle, it's because something better is waiting for you if you get the message. If you take the view that all of life is feedback and you're the cause of it, and either it's here to teach you something, a new reaction, because there are things that we can't control, like COVID, but this is the invitation to remind humans that we're not general managers of the universe. I laugh at governments and governors and mayors thinking they can protect us from death. Since when? All kinds of people died yesterday for different reasons. Humans filled with hubris, thinking we run the universe. We don't. We have to get over ourselves. And it's up to each individual. So where it begins is with you. You have to change yourself. You're the only one, after all, that you can control. So expand into the limitless thinker, the infinite thinker, and start to notice where you have that small minded thinker. And like I said, I do back in my body, but I can tell you that when we return to what we came from, we don't have it. That's the amazing thing about it. I immediately knew I was one with everything and nothing, which is so fascinating and such a miracle. And that in my life review, only the good I had done, the lives I had touched, those who I had helped, flashed before me. The good you do is somehow etched onto the fabric of time. So do good and work on overcoming that small-minded thinker and enjoy the journey and know that in the moment, any moment could be your last moment. Because as you know from my story, that day that I was doing a seminar with a future and a past and my human acorn brain, and the next second, I needed an ambulance, and 5 days later, I wasn't here for a brief moment, but I got the gift, the miracle of seeing what's next. Thank you. Any questions? Steve at stevelentini.com. Steve at stevelentini.com. In the next few episodes, upcoming in February, you'll hear interviews of people who've asked me to share my message with them and to ask them questions, and I've asked them to be part of the journey. And if you'd like to share your story about a near-death experience, or share your story about overcoming the small-minded thinker, the finite thinker expanding into the limitless, I'm glad to have you, interview you. We'll arrange it, and then I'll post it on the podcast. And remember, it's a journey, not a destination. You never arrive at that total breakthrough to the limitless, the infinite, the divine, the God, the goddess, until we leave this frail physical experience. Thank you again. Steve at stevelentini.com.